Of Kittens and Broken Things, Chapter 43. Kara and Thane had a brief and sedate walk through the Citadel to ground transport, fortunately not interrupted by death. They did discuss the possibility of it, and of course the chaotic dissolution of their way of living by having the Citadel turn into more of a political sinkhole. So she'd better enjoy the apartment while she could. Thane angled their trajectory in odd ways, and she imagined it was to avoid direct shots from vantage points he had identified. Arriving at the apartment, they were greeted by Kolyat, who stood nervously, looked first at his father, and then, somewhat bewildered, lower. A smile on Kara's face as the inevitable clashing expectation of "she's so little" struck him. She was used to it. She smiled at him. Thane moved forward to embrace Kolyat and was interrupted by a galloping carousel who came blurring around a corner and jumped straight at Thane, who caught her. Thane held her as she struggled and deftly handed the cat off to Kara, who tried to keep Carousel from struggling further and didn't manage all that well. Kolyat looked abashed, either from the out-of-control cat who he was responsible for, being caught, finding Shepard wanting in height and gravitas, and, well, that was probably enough. Kara held Carousel up, who was still wriggling and trying to get down, thankfully not biting, but her back claws dug into Kara's forearms. Fortunately not through fabric. That would be unforgivable, kitten. Thane might make you disappear. Kara said, "She's gotten so big." She decided not to rub noses. Right now, Carousel seemed more in a biting, thrashing mood. Thane achieved the embrace of his son he sought, his hand behind Kolyat's head, closed eyes and momentary peace, and paean to family. Thane backed up a step, relieved Kara of the cat, who calmed immediately and started licking at his hand. Kolyat stared, and Thane ignored her. Kara smiled, and Thane said, "Lal Shepard, this is my son, Kolyat." Kara said lightly, "Thank you for looking after her. She seems to be healthy and happy." Thane shifted Carousel in his grip so she was more comfortable, insane feline venom junkie seeming to be a normal part of his day. Kolyat said, "She hasn't done that until now." Thane's lips twitched, and Kara said, "What's a proper gel greeting?" "I don't know. For humans it's a wave or shaking hands or a hug, and I have no idea what's appropriate. Excuse me?" Kolyat asked, "What's a wave? Or shaking hands?" She demonstrated a wave and said, "Shaking hands, I don't know. That sounds like it describes a wave, doesn't it? It's extending a hand and grasping it, moving the hands up and down." She demonstrated with both her hands. "I don't know drill culture all that well. If you'd educate me? I don't want to be rude, but it's probably too late for that." Kolyat looked stymied on this point of protocol. Thane said, "Perhaps a wave would be best." Thane waved to Carousel, who followed his hand, mesmerized. Kolyat waved to Kara awkwardly, and she waved back with enthusiasm. Carousel wasn't fully grown yet, but she'd outgrown kitten size, and it took a little more venom this time before she was purring and on her side. Kolyat stared. Thane put Carousel back into Kara's shaking with laughter arms, where the cat stayed, reasonably content because she probably couldn't move. Thane said, "I would prefer to stay, but at the moment I have some urgent business I must attend to, and I believe the counselor will be by later?" Kara said, "4 hours." Thane nodded. "Kolyat, I will return shortly before then. Would you join me for dinner at your apartment?" Kolyat nodded dutifully. "Good. Until then." Thane walked to his son, hand behind his son's head again in farewell, then a stroke of his hand along Kara's cheek and a brush of his hand along Carousel's fur, and he was gone. Kara said, "He's a little overwhelming, isn't he?" Kolyat stood awkwardly, an uncomfortable expression on his face. Kara didn't want to impose on his humor, so she said, "Your father always intimidates me. Maybe it's just me." Kolyat said, "I haven't He never used to. I'm usually... Well, I've been too angry at him to be intimidated. He's good at making people angry. Does he make you angry? I try very hard not to get angry. Why? She looked at this young man, deprived of his parents, lost and bewildered, in the company of a cat. She had to leave because she was off shooting things. She said, I know you've been thrown into the middle of these odd relationships. Your father's been trying to protect you from his truths. Since you're in it, since I've asked you to be involved, and thank you for caring for Carousel, since I don't want to lie, and I want to answer your questions, do you mind if I tell you more truths? Your father is concerned that you'll be taken, questioned, and the less you know, the better for your safety. It seems to me you've had enough of safe, and I don't think he would allow anything like that to happen to you. I'm sure he'd disagree with me, and he's probably right in a father sense, but I'm more in friend territory. It's your choice. Koyat's hands edged around a chair, and he sat quietly, as if startling her would mean he wouldn't get to hear secrets. I'd like to know the truth. I try not to get angry because it would have mattered to my parents. I lied about not remembering them. It matters that I hide what I remember of them from people who don't care and wouldn't understand, but I'd like to think you care. And since I've put you in the middle of this confusion, the best I can do for you is to be honest. It matters what our parents think, what our parents thought. Your father, in some ways, especially lately, has been a parent to me, trying to get me to eat, trying to get me to sleep, and I owe him my life, several times over. So I wouldn't be angry at him, first because he deserves my love and respect, and second because I carry guns and anger would make it far too easy for me to use them. Maybe that's why I can afford it. No gun, nobody trying to get me to eat or to sleep. Do you? Eat and sleep? Yeah. My mother. She wouldn't like it if I didn't. She smiled and stroked Caracel's fur. Gone, but never forgotten. My mother and father would probably not be happy with my recent behavior, but not surprised either. I tended to stay up late. I threw a roll at your father when he tried to get me to go to sleep. Koyat's eyes tilted to the floor and his lips pressed together, and then he said, Now I'm dying to know. Did you go to sleep? She shook her head gravely. No, I didn't. I held out for hours. He's been dealing with days like that. Well, you're saving the galaxy, right? Yeah, and I'm also staying up late and making him lose sleep because he's been busy watching over me. He's taking good care of me, and I feel bad keeping him from you. No, if we're telling the truth, he's the one that keeps himself from me. She nodded. I sympathize. I can't possibly understand, but I sympathize. Your parents are dead. I think you can understand. I don't want to presume. Does he talk about my mother? Yes. I believe he loves her very much. Is that what you saw? I was a kid. Well, I'm still a kid, but yeah. My mom was easy to love. Has your father told you much about me? Not really. Well, since you're already in deep and spending time here and seeing us, let me continue with as much honesty as I can. I'm Counselor Vicarian's bondmate. Your father and I are seen coming and going from here together as a potential distraction from that. Your father suggested he and I have a visibly public relationship in hopes of starting a rumor that he and I are involved in order to protect Councillor Vicarian's seat on the council. It was a good idea. He got me this apartment so I would be able to meet with Garrus. He's hoping you and I can be friends. And I will tell you, I could use a friend. I'm not sure I'd be a good friend. I don't have much practice, but I'd like to try. So, just like I don't know Drell manners, sometimes I don't even know human manners. It does seem like a lot to ask you, to be a part of a lie. My name isn't even Lal Shepard. You might hear the counselor or your father call me Kara, because my name is Kara Fanning. That's the name my parents gave me, the name I supposedly forgot. But I have never forgotten them, or it. Maybe if or when we're in public, you call me Lal, and I call you by your new identity, whatever that is. Maybe we never make it out into public because it's dangerous out there, but here, call me Kara, please. Koyat looked jolted by sudden truth during that, then his expression hardened into something like resolve. He'd been entrusted only with a cat, and likely had rarely been told any truth by his father, maybe not even by his mother. Now he was looking at a very small and vulnerable Commander Shepard. The resolve made him look more like his father. He stood with a shy smile and walked over to her, knelt down by the side of her chair, and said, "Thank you, Kara. I'll do my best to make you all proud and be a friend. Here's how you greet a friend as a Drell." He held up his forearm at a 45-degree angle. "Hold up your arm like this. Cross at the wrist." She did that, and he tapped his wrist against hers and said, "So that's a friend." He then pressed their wrists together, not hard but steady, and put his hand behind her head and inclined his head, not touching but level. "And that's family." She smiled and started to cry, saying, "I'm... Thank you. Here's another thing. I'm kind of shy, and I cry when things matter. This matters. Here's what a hug is." She put her head on his shoulder and her arms around his ribs, Garcelle protesting with a weak sound of cat compression until they both laughed, and she pulled back, reassuring and resettling Carousel in her lap. Colette got them tea. She stayed where she was, stroking Carousel's fur, and taking in the glittering vista of the citadel, schemes whirling in her head. By the second cup, he'd pointed out he didn't know if she liked Drell tea, and she'd mentioned hot chocolate, explained what it was, and he brought her that for the next time. He told stories of Kaje. She told stories of Mindwar. They were both children of larger-than-life parents, hungry to hear and hungry to tell. Kolyat was funny and charming and quick to laugh, and she believed he was trying to be a gracious host, put her at ease in her own home, which was really still obviously not her style, but Thane's, where she felt so out of place. Halfway through the second cup, he was saying, "I know he's this hero, and it's... My mom always said he was a hero, and I believe it. Then he talks to me, and I'm so angry at him for... And I shouldn't be, but I can't seem to stop. But the way he talks about himself, as though he were the source of everything wrong that happened in my life, I want to shake him sometimes, but I'm too angry to say what's true, which is, Dad, I had the best childhood, the best, better than anybody. Drell aren't... Well, there's a lot going on in Drell communities. A lot of judgment, a lot of loss, a lot of disease and stress and uncertainty. Unlike other kids, I didn't have to hear about how Rakana was this and Rakana was that every minute. I wasn't weighed down with guilt. My parents just loved each other, loved me.
My mother made a beautiful home without making me feel like I had to tiptoe through it. I didn't have to pray. I didn't have to worship or revere. My father, I knew, though they didn't tell me, I knew it was because of him that our family, our friends, people got better instead of worse. They'd go on a trip and come back, and someone would have the money for a lung transplant or a home. Someone's son would be rescued, and he'd be the one bringing them back. My parents were my heroes. That's part of why I'm so angry. Not because he did anything wrong, just that he wasn't there to do everything right anymore. She knew that feeling. She smiled at him, tears in her eyes. He continued. So she was yellow, and he's green, and I'm blue, and sometimes I wanted to be yellow and green, like them. They both painted, and one day I got into the paint, and I was old enough to not be doing stupid things like that anymore, but I guess I'm still doing it. I tried to be like him when I took that contract. Back then, I got into the paint, and I painted these yellow and green slashes of color all over my face and head, and I was so proud of myself. I remember it now. I looked like someone broke into my bedroom in the middle of the night and assaulted me with badly mixed color. Really, really bad. The wrong yellow, the wrong green, and just smudged and streaked. Look at me! And that's what I remember. I know they gave me a great childhood. The best. I was always that little kid doing something goofy and never scolded for it. I think if I had a kid, I'm scared to have kids because I remember me as one. I'd have scrubbed their face and yelled at them for wasting paint and being stupid, and my mom just picked me up and danced with me and told me I was a masterpiece. She left it, said I didn't have to wash my face, and I'd go to sleep and wake up with flakes of paint on my pillow and the sheets, and they'd be clean when I went to bed that night. Not that I noticed things like that then. I know them now. I had this awful paint job, and my mom's backing me up, and neighbors' eyes are bugging out, and I think it's because I'm so handsome. And I know now it's because she wouldn't let anybody say a word against me, and they would never criticize Erica Krios because she was perfect. And if she said something was perfect, it was. She was like that. My dad was perfect. I was perfect because she said so. So my dad comes home maybe a day and a half later, and he wakes me up for breakfast, carries me down, and by that point I'm peeling like crazy. It's starting to itch, and I've decided on my own that I'm not doing that again. Look, my mom was nice, but also smart. She left it there and let me experience what being living art was. Living art makes you itchy. Kara started to giggle, and he looked at her and started to laugh. Then he said, "My dad, always so neat, perfect leathers, and he's got paint peeling off his son and sticking to his clothes, and he tells me my mother's so happy I'm an artist and a masterpiece, that he's proud of me for taking care of her and making her smile, that he's so glad to see me. After that, I have my own paint set. He teaches me how, and probably ruined 5 sets of sheets and his leathers, and that's who they were. That's who I remember. I think he wanted me to be exactly like her, and I can't. I'm not that patient. I'm not that perfect. But I wanted to be like him too, and I never knew how to be like either of them. I was just the itchy kid with a bad paint job. She was half crying and half laughing. She thought a moment and told him, "My mom taught me how to fight. My dad taught me about growing things, sustaining things. Around other people, I always felt so awkward and shy because I am. awkward and shy, but they made me feel so smart, so privileged to be at the table with him, eating his bread and discussing history or farming or really anything. I learned martial arts and guns from my mother. I learned farming and cooking from my father, and I can make a brownie, but I can't make his bread. I keep trying and it never. I don't remember how he did it, how he managed without eggs. I didn't know at the time that it was important, and now it haunts me. I had his bread just about every day, and to have failed to know how important it was, to fail to really watch, really ask questions, really see, I can't forgive myself. I'll probably never know, but the memory of it, the memory of them. I was much better at martial arts and guns than baking or farming. I thought I knew how to bake bread, that it looked so easy. Instead, I remember how to arrange a flank attack. I do remember the strategic training I've had. That's a value, of course, but if I could have a drill memory, or if I could go back just for 5 minutes, I'd ask my father how he did it. For me, yes, they were perfect people. From what I know of your father, from what he's told me of your mother, you lived like I did, with people who loved each other, with everything they had, every moment. And to be cast out of that, it's like losing heaven. Every other place seems like hell until you learn to fake it and pretend. When you realize not everyone else had heaven. Koyat held her eyes with his for a moment and said with a self-deprecating smile, "That's very profound. I hope you find your bread. I hope you remember someday. I know you are just as smart as they thought you were. Probably more. I bet they'd be proud. You are loved." He smiled. Yeah, I am. I should be grateful. I've just never been all that good at that. Or maybe I was the best at that once, and it's an ability I lost. Something I'll try to work on. Did you get better at painting? No, not really. I'd love to hear about anything my dad does that he's bad at, if you can help me out there.
She thought a moment and said, "Being known. Some things stay the same. You know he's sick?" He told me. "I think he's bad at caring for himself. I'd like your help with doing something about that. Since I've told a lot of secrets and we're this far gone, would you keep another one for me? This time something your father doesn't know. Something we can do about him being sick. If we all live that long. I plan on living that long." "Are you saying I could help? Not just watch and wait? Again?" "Yes." The resolve in his face, the love in his eyes. He was yellow and green and blue, both of his parents, and fully himself in the moment, wholly there. "What do you want me to do?"
When Garrus found her at the apartment, she had Carousel in her lap. He'd seen pictures, but hadn't met the cat formally. He smiled down at them. The cat was sleeping. Kara was smiling back. He missed having her launch herself at him from across the room, but he could understand she had company. He'd never met a cat. Verse-like. Kara was covered in shed hair. He reached a hand down to pet her, and Carousel flinched, turned to look at him, eyes wide in a hiss. She bolted away up the stairs, gone. Definitely verse-like, and he was not the chosen one again. He watched the cats retreat as Kara laughed, and he said, "Okay, maybe later." Then his bondmate launched herself at him, laughing, and he caught her, cat forgotten immediately, except for all the potential hair now on both of them. He moved in to kiss her, and she slid her hand between their mouths until he said again, "Okay, maybe later." Again? What?
I'm new at this relationship thing. I'm trying to figure out if talking to you before Reverie means I'm clear-headed, you're clear-headed.
I don't really want to be clear-headed, but okay. Now I'm scared. He had some sense of how these things went, so he pivoted and sat down, her knees to either side of his thighs with her on his lap and his hands on her hips, hers on his shoulders.
Sorry. Stuff happening. Weird stuff.
I'm shocked. Okay, what's the drawback to doing this while not clear-headed?
That it's manipulative because you're more likely to agree to anything I say.
You're my Ava. I have to agree.
Even worse.
Okay, let's get more relationship experience.
I have to tell you a few things. First, I'm really, I mean a lot, attracted to Thane Krios.
He raised a brow plate. Yeah, I caught on to that part. Right about where you told me you loved him but wouldn't act on it. Thinking about acting on it?
No, still never. Always never. Just a new level of unwilling to act on it.
So you're telling me why? A warning?
No, not at all. It's all about not being good at the relationship thing. I'm supposed to share this stuff with you. Be honest, right?
He thought. He wasn't really sure, so he said, "Honestly, I have no idea. Have I mentioned that humans are weird?"
A few times. I just don't want to feel like I'm keeping it from you.
You want me to be properly appraised of how attractive he is?
Yep, really attractive.
This man who shares your quarters.
That's the one.
Okay, I'm informed. I shouldn't panic or be jealous.
No, not at all. I'm never going to do anything.
Just high alert.
High alert.
Got it. Is he going to do anything?
Yes and no.
Is he going to do anything effective?
It's all effective.
This is not helping me clarify.
No, he's not going to cross a certain line. He just stands at that line and asks me to walk over it of my own accord, sort of like a Turian who asked me to press him.
Damn, smart guy.
That's part of the attractive thing.
All right, properly appraised. Thank you for informing me.
That was the right thing to do?
I have no idea. I just don't really think arguing with you over it is the right thing to do.
Okay. Also, Thane's probably going to kill Valorn.
There was a long pause and he stared at her. It did not seem like a joke. What?
He thinks Valorn's trying to kill me. 2 billion credit contract on my life?
This was not the first concern of yours? Where is he now?
Having dinner with Kolyat.
Are you sure?
No,
2 billion?
he says.
And you didn't mention this?
I just found out!
I want to put my head in my hands, but my hands are staying on your hips, so just imagine me with my head in my hands here for a little bit.
Okay. See, trying to do the right thing's hard. Should I have lied? Told you tomorrow? I just want to be not feeling like I'm holding anything back while we're not holding anything back.
I suppose I can see why you wouldn't want to moan, "Valern's trying to kill me" during sex. Would kill the mood. Or, wait, Never mind, I'm weird. I'd probably go with it. Is he sure that Valerne is trying to kill you?
Sure enough to inform me of the contract, point out to you that maybe if the contract on me fails, they will move on to you as a target.
What?
Want me to repeat it?
No, go on.
On his own, he eliminated someone who took a 1 billion credit contract against me.
Oh, come on, really?
Really?
Go on.
And now he thinks this contract is Solarian in origin. The amount, the timing, after I came back to life, after Trireme, that I'm a threat to Solarian interests. Do you think it's possible?
Well, not only possible, but probable, yeah. Valerne's definitely the sort of guy that would do that.
Oh, well, that's why Thane's to the informing us stage, because he believes he's about to set galactic politics on its side, flopping like a fish on a dock, and that concerns us both. Even if Valerne's gone, he believes any Solarian that takes his place will do the same thing.
Gareth sighed and thought for a long moment and said, "No, he's not wrong that it's possible."
Thane keeps pointing out that I need him. This is just one of those ways. Without him, I'd probably have been killed somewhere on my way to a bakery on Ilium or the Citadel. He's had his own security following me, and he's been using me as easily predictable bait. But that might change suddenly, and he needs us prepared. Upside, no fake relationship until this is straightened out, or maybe never, no matter what we do. Angry Solarians. You know what I think we should do?
I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's going to be upsetting.
Yes, very much so. Thane says I can't stop him from eliminating any agents sent after me, and he wants your help and Liara's help with finding the contract holder, and I can't stop him from doing that either.
He's right there. If there's a direct threat, I want to know about it. And yes, I'm taking his side on this one. Can't believe I just said that.
So I was thinking, what if we take every bit of intel we have or can dredge up on the Solarian Union, their black ops, their agenda, their uplift projects, their contracts on Council specters, and make a push to eliminate the Solarian Council seat?
Garrus blinked and said, "There it went. Brain's gone."
All right then. I guess I'm done talking.
He shook his head and said, "Limieth, I—" His train of chaotic thought was interrupted by the cat jumping on the back of the couch and leaning her nose in until she tickled his hide with her whiskers, scared the hell out of him, and batted at the scent ridge under his tunic with her paw. He turned his head slowly toward the cat, trying not to startle her or knock her aside with his mandible as she started to try to dig, Kara laughing and pulling the cat into her arms, who lunged again for the ridge. Garrus said to Carousel solemnly, "Those are not for you. No. No." Carousel ignored him, and he said deadpan, "It's just like trying to talk to politicians. I'm used to it."
Kara grinned. She's supposed to be my cat, but she's really not the slightest bit interested in me. She has good taste, though.
Garrus smiled at her and said, "Any other things of vital importance you have to tell me right now?"
No,
"Good. Since my brain's already off, I'm just going to go with it. Any objections?"
none. I love you. You make me happy.
"Good. Put the cat down." She let Carousel loose, who immediately jumped on Garrus's shoulder and tried to excavate. Seeing that he wasn't going to get any peace whatsoever, he said, "Strategic retreat. Something I can't always do with politicians who can open doors." He stood up, tried to brush off the persistent cat, but needed Kara's help lifting her when she resisted and dug in her claws. Kara dropped her to the floor, Garrus expecting a splat, but Kara said,
Cats always land on their feet.
He believed her, said, "Interesting," and then outpaced the cat upstairs, closed the door, ignored the afterward persistent scratching, and dropped Kara on the bed until she bounced and laughed. He smiled at her and said, "I can't believe I used to want for you to tell me the truth. I'm nostalgic for the blessings of ignorance." She smiled and leaned up on an elbow, watching him. I know, you and the cat both object to the tunic, so it's got to go.
Yay!
He was just barely catching up on the fact that she was really here and he could touch her. His brain melted from the cumulative shocks, hands slow on fastenings as she watched, her eyes warmer. He even got a soft clapping from her. He probably could have said something about Krios, but he really did believe her and didn't want the man brought to her mind any more than he wanted the cat on his shoulders. Just her, just them. No Krios, no Valerne, no cat. Yes, everything was metaphorically or literally scratching at the door, but he was inside with her, and she was smiling. All he really needed to know is that she belonged to him, and all she really needed to know was that he belonged to her. She was still smiling and wasn't moving, watching him, avid, wide green eyes. Despite the chaos and threat, she had missed him, and he'd heard that and seen it every time they'd spoken. And with her mind cleared, she was entirely his. She wore a softly shimmering, warm golden brown fabric blouse. He stepped forward and took the hem of that fabric in his hand, twisted and drew it up until it was partway over her face, bunching the fabric behind her back with one hand. Her eyes were covered, her shoulders and arms bound up. He shifted onto the bed carefully, slowly, knees to either side of her hips, fabric bunched in his hand behind her back, twisting until it tightened and pulled her head and shoulders back. No resistance or fear or question in this woman of melting metal and desire. With his other hand he gathered scent, painted along her jawline, cheekbones, down her nose, and a long line between her breasts. He really had nothing more to say except the obvious. Nothing but more sun when the sun was out, more rain when the clouds gave way, observations and desires that stood more strongly on their own. But she loved his voice and he loved hers, and that was a good enough reason to say things to her. Kara, you missed me. So frustrating knowing that if I'd been here, I'd have absolutely no problem getting you into bed. Sleep might have taken a little while. He bent his head and kissed her, height of his palm along her throat, along the trail of scent and branching out to the side, to slide along her breast. Her breath hitched and her heart hammered loud. That giveaway sound he loved from her. His mouth left hers to her distraught moan from loss, and he smiled, breathed in along the scent at her jawline and bit down lightly on her throat, not breaking the skin, but causing a soft gasp and a little whine from her. The outside tried to crowd in, thoughts of all the threat and incursions, and he set those things aside in each moment, building the fire in this room, in their minds and definitely in their bodies, until reverie and closed distance dispelled the darkness, the missed opportunities, the lost time, the future that wasn't certain so much as certainly awful in every direction. She was near passive and speechless, a tiny bound woman whose mind was spinning with the remnants of her expensive death, the potential dissolution of galactic politics, the honestly perceived threat to her bond that wasn't a threat, but was, because Krios had venom, and she knew she had to tell Garrus that if she ever crossed that line, it wasn't voluntarily. That's why she had to tell him. Not just honesty, but confession of her vulnerability. She had to tell her bondmate that she was a danger. She was in danger. She would walk straight into danger. He knew that, but today was special. Unseen dangers crowding in on them, not from reapers, but from supposed allies. She didn't mind that her cat didn't care for her at all. She accepted if her bondmate towered over her and made it impossible for her to see or move. If he tried to get her to talk, she'd probably only have gasping yes or no answers, unless he asked her about a chemical composition of reverie, and then she'd likely have a dutiful lecture on the subject she could provide between gasps. She would honestly only be able to manage about 30 seconds conscious, joined. The cat at the door began to yowl as well as scratch, and it made Kara laugh, helpless peals. She said,
She's not going to stop.
he realized he was going to have to fix the yowl, inconvenient or not. He said, when a man can't ravage his bondmate in his own home that isn't his home because it was given to his bondmate by someone trying to sleep with her, it's a very weird day. Kara started to laugh harder, and he let go of the fabric, pulled the shirt entirely off her head and down her arms, kissed her, and then went to the door, opened it, and stared down at the suddenly coy cat, tail twitching, looking at him expectantly. He scooped up the cat and brought her back to the bed, setting her down between them. Kara pet her as Carousel paced in the narrow channel she had, then nudged at his scent ridge again. He looked at Kara, who nodded and said,
She demands tribute.
Garrus shook his head. This is really not how it's done, Carousel. Cats and humans seem to have no respect for Turian etiquette. He carefully gathered some scent and painted Carousel's face, 3 little curves on her forehead, and the cat purred contentedly. There, you're a fanning. Don't tell anybody.